My name is Shane Sharp. I'm a Happy Life Habits coach, speaker and trainer, and I'm here to share some thoughts on positive grief. Positive griefs are not normally two words you would see together, but I'd like to share some thoughts and ideas today to help you on your journey as you navigate through your loss and experience grief, and give some ideas on why I call it positive grief. So grief can be due to any kind of loss. It can be due to a loss of a job, a relationship, country, or an item. But today our focus will be on the loss of a loved one. I will draw upon some of my learning and insights about grief, death, and life after experiencing grief with the loss of a young friend in 2019. The sudden and unexpected death of my father in December 2020 when we were in lockdown and during that period. And also my father-in-law in December 2023 in another continent. I have no idea what you've gone through with your loss, and as the Reverend said, I can't even imagine. But I do know you've experienced grief. And I'd like to share some key messages which I hope will give you some solace, give you some strength to navigate this journey. And these key messages are: grief exists because there is love. Everyone's grief journey is different. Grief has an impact on the brain, causing some parts to be less dominant and other areas to be more dominant and go into survival mode. And the two hemispheres of our brain can become disjointed. That explains some of the experiences and feelings and thoughts we have. I'll share a little bit about the 5 stages of grief, which Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has shared, that we often go through the different stages of grief. And I'll also share an additional stage which David Kessler has added. And a statement here is, there is no closure to grief. We have to learn to grow around it. And experiences like the Remembrance Day that we have today are things which can help us to grow around the grief. And a reminder that life is impermanent, life is short, and our time is limited. And I will close with a poem. So what is grief? And this definition I really quite like, and I think captures it really well. Grief is a change, an unwanted change. So it's a change that we've had which we didn't want, and that's what causes us to have grief. In a book by Andrew Holleran called Grief, a Novel, he shares that grief is what you have after someone you lose. Grief is what you have after someone you love dies. It's the only thing left of that person. You're loved for, you're missing them, and as long as you have that, you're not alone, you have them. And he goes on to say that, the dead exist in our hearts. And that, I think, is something that can help us as we go through our journey. Your grief is a substitute for their presence on earth. So the fact that they are no longer here, it's been replaced by grief. What do we think and feel during grief? We may feel sadness, confusion, disorientation, anxiety, depression, anger, and many more feelings and thoughts. And this occurs because grief has an impact on our brain. What grief does is the thinking part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, a bit here near the front, becomes underactive. So our thoughts aren't as clear or as working as they were before. The emotional regulator becomes underactive, so our emotions and feelings are all over the place. The survival instinct part of the brain becomes dominant. The body and the brain go into survival mode. And a part of the brain which controls fear and sleep becomes overactive. So we have a sense of fear, and our sleep patterns are messed up. Sometimes we want to sleep, sometimes we want to be awake. It's all over the place. Stress occurs, and cortisol gets, stress hormone gets put into our body, into our system, and that can cause us to feel fight or flight or fear responses. And our thinking ability becomes less, our cognitive flexibility becomes less, because these parts of the brain have become underactive. They, in a way, they've separated for that moment of time when we've had this trauma. And part of our journey is to reintegrate the emotional and the thinking parts together. And we can do this, or partly do this, through self-care practices like gratitude, journaling, meditation, and so forth. Prayer and faith can all help bring the two parts together. In terms of the 5 stages of grief, a Swiss psychologist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with these 5 stages. What she had done was spoken to people who were in the last stages of death and asked them what they're going through, what they're feeling, and they explained that this is, what I'm feeling, and she captured these 5 stages. But what was interesting was when she shared these stages with other people, and people who had lost someone, they experienced and recognized those different stages. So hence, it's come to be known as the 5 stages of grief. These are not linear, so it's not one happens after another. They're not in a chronological order. There's no clear boundaries between one or the other, and you may not go through all of them, and you may go through 1 or 2 of them more than once. So it's a mishmash of The different stages listed are denial. You can't believe this. And this is the brain going into survival mode, not wanting to face this reality. There's anger. Why did this happen to us? Why did it happen to me? There's bargaining with the Almighty or otherwise of what if and regrets. Depression. And then the 5th stage is acceptance. This is when the left and the emotional and the thinking parts are coming together, they're becoming integrated. And that's, as we come to this level of acceptance. A 6th stage, which has been added to these 5, is by a chap called David Kessler. And the stage he's added is called meaning. So, as we go through the different stages of grief, as we grow around our grief, acceptance and meaning are, in a way, where we want to head towards. If I were to ask you to think about a monument which represents love, what would come to mind? A monument which represents love. Anyone? Any thoughts on any monument which represents love?
Love for our kids or in...
Yeah, so loving our kids, but a monument that's in the world which symbolizes love.
For me, it's an angel. An angel.
Angel. Brilliant, thank you. Thank you. So what I was thinking of here is some people might say the Eiffel Tower in Paris is a monument representing love. Others may say the Taj Mahal in India. And using the Taj Mahal, I'd like to explain that this is a monument which represents love. It was built over 400 years ago by the Emperor Shah Jahan. He ruled the area, and his wife, Mumtaz, passed away. He loved her dearly, and she passed away. And he was overstricken with grief when she passed away. And in order to, help him express that grief and that deep love he has for her, he decided to build this building, the Taj Mahal. And he built this massive, magnificent building. It took many years, and it was used to house the body of Mumtaz. So it's a mausoleum. So there is, a place to have his loved one. And that building we can still see today, 400 years later. So that building has been born out of one person's grief, but deeper than that, that grief has been born out of love. So David Kessler shares, grief is not a negative emotion. It is the expression of love. Grief exists because there is love. We may not feel it at the time. We may feel the anger, we may feel depressed, we may feel sad, and all of these different emotions which we normally see as more negative emotions than positive. But if we are able to remind ourselves that this grief exists because there is love, and love is a positive emotion, it can help us work with the grief. So which is the worst grief? A parent who has lost a young child? A parent who has lost a middle-aged child? Someone who has lost an elderly parent? A young child who has lost a parent? A newly married couple losing a spouse? A married couple with marriage of more than 50 years losing a spouse? A sibling losing a spouse? Loss of both parents or a child within a fortnight? Loss due to illness such as cancer? Loss due to sudden heart attack? Loss due to natural causes? Or a loss due to an accident, an act of violence, or a natural disaster? Which is the worst grief? The worst grief is your grief, the one you're experiencing. That's the worst grief. Everyone's grief journey is different, as the Reverend has said. And we do not judge or compare or measure our grief. Some people may take months to overcome their grief or to work through their grief and then seem to be back on a normal track. And others may take years. But we cannot compare or judge each other or anyone else on their experience of grief, because everyone's grief journey is unique. So that's a key message I want you to take away, that everyone's journey is unique and it's different, and there should be no judgment, comparison, or measuring of the grief. There is no closure to grief. There's just a beginning, a middle, and the rest of your life. What I have found that's helped me with thinking about what I just shared of growing around grief is this image. This is by Dr. Lewis Tonkin, and it shows 3 jars with 3 different balls inside that jar. And what often people think is, and that ball represents grief, and what often people think is, as time goes by, the grief becomes less. The reality is, the grief stays the same. It's there, it's permanent, it's always there, it's the same. But what we learn to do is to grow around that grief. And that, I find, has helped me to work through the grief I've experienced. So the grief, we learn to grow around it. So how do we grow around grief? We make space for ourselves. We take offers of support from people. We ask for support when we need it. We talk if we want to. Write, feel, express, or cry. We try and keep some routines and activity. We do our self-care of eating, drinking, and sleeping the right stuff. Meditation, walking, practicing gratitude, journaling, all of these things can help. Creating boundaries, especially around the initial loss when lots of people want to talk to us or call us, and keeping those times available for family conversation and not being disturbed during mealtime is important. And controlling the visiting times. The other things that can help us to grow around the grief is, as we think about our loved ones who we've lost, we think of what their strongest qualities are, how they express these. So we share stories, anecdotes, and examples of them expressing their strongest qualities, what their life motto and key principles were, what your fondest memories are, the challenges they faced and how they dealt with them, and how can we help others who are maybe going through grief. We can help by giving them space, support, offers for food and cooking, getting to shopping done or taking them shopping. This one's really important. Checking in on them now and then, especially weeks and months later. Often over the first few days and the first couple of weeks, there's lots of people offering help and being around. But as time goes by, that's when support is needed. And in particular, anniversaries, birthdays, Father's Day, Mother's Day, and during the festival times. We be there for them and let them talk if they want to, not asking what happened, helping to arrange funeral arrangements, run errands, get medicines, and so forth. The most important thing we can do to help others is to have empathy, compassion, kindness, presence, and love. Sometimes what helps is remembering that life is impermanent. And this quote, I quite like, life and time are the two best teachers. Life teaches us to make good use of our time, and time teaches us the value of life. Just before coming towards the poem and the wrapping up, I'm just going to remind you of the key points that I wanted you to take away and share. So, grief exists because there is love. Everyone's grief journey is different. Grief has an impact on the brain, and that causes us to have the different thoughts and feelings. There's the different stages of grief, and acceptance and meaning are the ones which we work towards to grow around the grief. There is no closure to grief. We grow around it. And I'm Shailin Shah, born 26th September 1970, not sure when I'll pass away, but if I live to the average age, it's into the 80s, so less than 30 years from now. What I'd like to share is this poem as on closing, which I think helps capture the birth date and the death date quite well. And the poem is called The Dash by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was that dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love, how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time there is left that still can be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more. And love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remember that special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's action to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? I take this opportunity to thank Croydon University Hospital and the bereavement team for giving me the opportunity to be part of this service and to share. I hope some of the things I've shared help you with your journey, and that you have the strength to grow around the grief and reach acceptance.